and then someone hands you a baby, you're going to drop something. And hopefully it's not the baby. If I'm being honest, I did drop my baby once. And I knew it was bad when I dropped him and he didn't make a noise. That's not entirely true. He did make a noise when I dropped him. He kind of sounded like this. So I picked him up and I panicked. This was bad. So I went and got him vaccinated right away. I wanted something else to blame just in case he turned out autistic. So the other day, I was visited by a rabid raccoon in my backyard. It was a Saturday morning, and there was a rabid raccoon. I was wandering around, stumbling in my backyard, walking in a circle like a drunk Scrooge McDuck. And so I called animal control, and they said, it's not rabid, it just has distemper. And I said, well, how do you know it doesn't have dat temper? And the lady laughed kind of like you guys did. And she said, all right, well, our field crews don't work the weekend, so here's what you need to do. Take your garbage can, put it over the animal, put a rock on the garbage can, and we'll be out on Monday. And I said, so on Monday you guys are going to come out and you guys are going to nurse the raccoon back to health. And she said, oh no, distemper is fatal. But the good news is it's going to be 100 degrees this weekend. On Monday we'll come out and collect the carcass. This didn't feel humane to me, and so I said, you know, can I just shoot it? And she said, it's illegal for you to shoot a firearm within city limits. And I said, well, what happens if I do? So she said, that doesn't matter between you and the police. So I called the police next, and I explained the situation, and we had a conversation that boiled down to, essentially, it was safer for me to approach an animal in distress and put a bucket over it than it was for me to stand a comfortable distance away and shoot it. Okay. So I asked the next question, well, can you guys shoot it? She said, well, the officer said, no, I can't shoot it. I said, come on, you guys are the police, you love killing stuff. The officer said, and that's why we can't do it anymore. Fast forward, that afternoon, I'm at an event where they have police working security, and I walked over to one of the officers and I said, hey, so I've got this issue, and I explained to the officer what's going on, and I said, so what do I do about it? The officer looks around and goes, hey, it looks like he's about to tell me a dirty joke, you know, looking around to see what's around. Like, this is going to be good. He goes, here's what you do. Call back and say that the animal has become aggressive. That will give you motive and probable cause for self-defense. Now you can shoot the raccoon. But before you shoot the raccoon, you have to shout, stop resisting! So that raccoon is no longer with us. So I started a new job the other day. I now work at an asphalt plant in St. Paul, and we're going through a rebranding effort. And so I used ChatGPT and used AI to come up with some new slogans for our asphalt plant. So ChatGPT came up with a new slogan that a majority of people are going to like. ChatGPT said, St. Paul asphalt, making asphalt great again. I said, try again, ChatGPT. Build back better with St. Paul asphalt. I said, all right, try again. I said, St. Paul asphalt. Yes, we can. So I said, all right, ChatGPT, do it again, find me a slogan, but don't use anything politically inspired. And so our new slogan, you guys ready for it? Yeah. St. Paul asphalt. Quality is our recipe. It's also the slogan for Wendy's. So I got a working trick for you. I'm really bad with names, and I have to allow my coworkers to learn their names. And so instead of asking people what their name is over and over again, I walk around with my clipboard and I just say, hey, how do you spell your name? And so this trick usually works for me. And so I went over to my coworker and I said, hey, how do you spell your name? And he looks at me like I'm an idiot. He goes, B-O-B. I thought, oh shoot, and I thinking quickly, I said, you spell it conventionally. Sometimes I see it with 2 O's. Now he thinks I'm an idiot. All right, that's my time. I am Chris.